right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hillary's health. That is the subject of all the talk today, or much of it and most of it. It's also the subject of this special report from our Newsmax colleague, Miranda Khan. Miranda?
Steve, Hillary Clinton's health has come under more scrutiny since being diagnosed with pneumonia. Clinton's doctor says she diagnosed her Friday before she had to leave the 9/11 memorial ceremony in New York early because she said she was overheated. She then headed to her daughter's apartment after the incident. Donald Trump, who has said Hillary is not strong enough to be president and lacks the physical stamina to take on ISIS, is now downplaying Hillary's latest health concern.
Well, I really just don't know. I hope she gets well soon. I don't know what's going on. I'm like you. I see what I see. The coughing fit was a week ago, so I assume that was pneumonia also. I mean, I would think it would have been, so something's going on. But I just hope she gets well and gets back on the trail, and we'll be seeing her at the debate.
Trump also said this morning that he'll release the results from his latest physical that he took over the weekend. Hillary Clinton, as you know, has canceled a trip to California because of her pneumonia. A spokesperson for her campaign says she will be back on the trail, expects her to be back on the trail by the end of the week. Steve, back to you.
Miranda, thank you very much. And also Hillary's camp say that they will release medical records this week as well. Joining us now, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, President of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, retired lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, and author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. Doctor, great to talk to you again, sir.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be with you.
And, of course, the doctor part here for this topic is key because you are an MD. Let me just start with this. The latest claim made today by Clinton's campaign manager just about, a few hours ago, was that not only was she making calls after we saw her collapse and get in that car, she felt immediately better and she was making calls from the car, but when they got to her daughter's house a few minutes later, she was running around chasing her grandchildren. Believable?
Well, you know, I have to tell you, Steve, well, first let me preface this by saying that I was a physician in the Navy, also was a physician to Congress, but I've never examined her, never took care of her, so
right.
There's no confidentiality or doctor-patient relationship here, but obviously as an internist, I do this every day, and pneumonia is a disease that presents not only with cough, but fevers, chills, and other things. If she was passing, you know, what she had was a syncopal episode. She passed out. That's either cardiovascular or neurologic. Now, her team wants us to believe that this is dehydration. She didn't appear to be dehydrated, and that doesn't get fixed in 90 minutes. So I can tell you that it really appears, and if I let a patient with syncope leave my office and not get admitted and get evaluated immediately, that would be malpractice. So there's something going on. I mean, even if you look at the reaction of her assistants when she passed out, it almost seemed to appear something they've been familiar with. Nobody was really shocked that she was buckling and her knees were buckling. So either it's chronic cerebrovascular accidents, strokes that she's had before that are just exacerbated when she gets ill, or it's some type of neurologic condition, or she had some underlying cardiovascular disease, either atrial fibrillation or heart failure that keeps presenting itself. So the reason we are speculating is because, just like Dr. Ben Carson said earlier today, you know, she has a disease of dishonesty. And on the anniversary of Benghazi, she had a health episode that the American people deserve to know what the reality is. And I think any physician worth their salt knows that people don't pass out from pneumonia, but from other things, either cardiovascular or neurological.
Right. So when they say she has pneumonia and she was dehydrated and that's why she passed out, that's not plausible?
The dehydration could make her lightheaded and pass out, but she wouldn't be walking out fine 90 minutes later.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't, when people are that sick from pneumonia, they're short of breath, they're wheezing, just look very ill, and she looked fine 90 minutes later. So there's some underlying condition that makes her pass out when she gets sick.
Right.
So she may have had a by the way, pneumonia is only diagnosed by chest x-ray. Her team said that she was diagnosed by a home exam, which is just bronchitis.
Right.
And they're jumping to the conclusion that it's pneumonia just to make it more plausible, I think.
Yeah, no, the whole, there's something up. And if you have pneumonia, you're probably not going to be standing around a group of people infecting, plus you'd probably be coughing, and then you're not going to call a strange little girl like she did when she came out of Chelsea's place and say, you know, come here and kind of embrace her. But also, if she had pneumonia, as they claim, and passed out, would she be chasing her grandchildren around the apartment as soon as she gets up there from the car?
Well, she's, you know, it appears that she's 4 or 5 days into the antibiotic that they started her on last week, I would guess.
Well, if she was diagnosed, doctor, if she was diagnosed on Friday, that was Sunday.
Yeah. So, you know, the pneumonias that are contagious are either viral or TB. If she had a bacterial pneumonia, it would not be contagious.
Right.
But you're right. We usually don't have people going around and doing significant public contact within 3 days of being diagnosed, which is probably why they pulled her off her California trip and other things to make it appear that this is pneumonia. And I'm afraid there's something else going on.
Yep. Okay. We're going to have to wait, and we're going to have to tell. Let me ask you about 9/11, and you know it fits in with your group of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and your book, A Battle for the Soul of Islam. 15 years after, and I spoke to Bernard Kerig about this last Friday. I spoke to Deborah Burlingame about this last Friday. 15 years later, can you have ever imagined that we would have an administration that's been in place for 8 years, so it didn't start 15 years later, that has done everything to bend over backwards, going almost in the opposite direction from where we should be going to recognize our enemy and fight our enemy?
It's I can't tell you how absurd it is. I mean, really, the mantra, the hashtag never forget, we've forgotten. And Al-Qaeda it pales in comparison to ISIS and the global war against political Islam. And yet we're still working with the same so-called allies, the Saudis, who are not only the firefighters against ISIS, but the arsonists. So, you know, the bottom line is that we haven't learned. It is important to name the enemy because you can't treat the root causes, the precursors of the whack-a-mole program that we have now, which is Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Jamaat Islamiyah, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, all these groups that are now coming. The Arab Awakening was an opportunity, and unfortunately, because our president and this secretary are on the golf course and not really giving America a presence for the advancement of liberty, we've allowed that vacuum to be filled by Russia, to be filled by Iran. We've been ransoming and turning into a complete paper tiger. And 15 years later, all the lives lost, not only on 9/11, but in Iraq and Afghanistan, we paid the ultimate price, fighting a war that cannot be won militarily and can only be won ideologically. And if we have yet, Steve, to engage Muslim reformers, which are the only solution.
Let me ask you about the North Koreans and what they just did last week. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and we're kind of like immune and or numb to the madman there, the latest madman there, doing the latest madman thing to do. But nonetheless, this nuclear test, which caused an earthquake, literally and kind of figuratively, or should have caused one figuratively, is very, very frightening, because we don't know, and you correct me if I'm wrong, whether or not the North Koreans now have the means to put a nuclear warhead on a ballistic missile and send it to the West Coast.
And then, by the way, that was the point of why they did this test on the anniversary, the 68th anniversary of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, was to poke us in the eye and show that they could do a 15 to 20 ton bomb. The one earlier this year was 5 to 10 tons. This is the 6th test in the last 10 years. The 5th one under the Obama administration. And I'm growing a little tired of sort of the dismissals of some that, well, he's sort of a punchline because he's such a weird dictator. Claudia Rosette, I would ask you all to look at a piece Claudia Rosette wrote for Forbes magazine last week, in which she said, connect the dots between Iran and North Korea. The $1.7 billion of cash that they got, why would they want it in euros and Swiss dollars, not to give to their own people, which is the idiocy that the Obama-Kerry administration wants us to believe they got it for, but rather maybe to buy means or nuclear material from the Koreans,
right,
and thus short-circuit the entire nuclear deal that we had. So there is a club of mafiosos, of tyrants that are working behind the scenes that see the opening of the appeasement process of Obama, and this poke in the eye by Kim Jong-un is intentional to tell us, you know what, we're going to move forward. And this is why you saw the Russians also back off and say, oh, let's not change sanctions on Korea right now. And the world is becoming daily much more and more insecure.
And point out your credentials when it comes to North Korea, just so the folks know.
Well, I've been studying counterterrorism and global threat analysis on nuclear deterrence and counterterrorism as far as radical Islam for over 15 years.
Yeah, that
11
part.
years in the Navy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I just wanted people to be familiar with the entire resume. We certainly know the latter, but some people may not know the former. Doctor, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much, my friend.
Anytime, Steve. Thank you.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, ladies and gentlemen. Again, check out A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. Up next, James Taranto, best of the web columnist for the Wall Street Journal, and John Zogby. He'll join us as well. We have an all-star show. As usual, don't go away.